there's basically 3 steps in strategy making, and the third step is really the biggest, that takes the most energy for an executive, and that we're going to spend the most time on. But today I'm going to talk about the first 2. So what are those 3 things? First of all, develop a strategic vision and mission. So you need to understand who you are and where you want to go with your organization. And then once you know where you want to go, you want to set objectives, some kind of performance criteria for deciding whether you're getting there or not. So tracking your performance, tracking your progress, seeing if you are achieving your vision. All right. And then in step 3, which won't be in this particular presentation, crafting a strategy to move your firm along its strategic course and achieve its objectives. And that gets into a lot more specifics than just being able to have goals, but now we're getting into the how question. How are we going to be successful? Okay, so let's start with number 1 of that strategy process, vision and mission. Now, before we go forward, I do want to point out that not all successful companies have vision statements or mission statements. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that do well without one, but there has been research that shows that companies that do have vision and mission statements and that stick to those vision and mission statements tend to be the ones that are the most successful. In other words, vision statements and mission statements are correlated with success. So, you know, as easy as it is to craft one, and I'm not saying, you know, it's snap of your fingers, just jot down the first thing that comes to mind, but comparatively easy to other things in business, having a vision statement or having a mission statement, it makes a lot of sense to do that. We want to distinguish between the 2 things, and I will say that mission statements are more common than vision statements and probably slightly more useful, but really to enact the strategic process the way I'm going to present it and in a way that's very logical and makes a lot of sense, it's good to have both. All right, so the distinction between vision and mission is fairly clear-cut. The vision is more big picture and more future and more aspirational. What is it that we want to be? Where are we going? You know, in an ideal world, what is it that we're going to achieve? All right, all of those are kind of vision-y ideas. Vision statements tend to be shorter than mission statements. All right, a firm's mission statement is more concrete. Basically, the mission statement should determine your business at its best, what it is right now. It should be very easily observable. All right, so it describes the scope and purpose of your present business, who we are, what we do, why we are here. Let's start with vision. A strategic vision describes your aspirations for the company's future. So a good strategic vision, in order to do that, in order to describe those aspirations, needs the following characteristics. It needs to outline your aspirations to your stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? Well, first of all, they're owners, right? They're the people that have some kind of ownership stake in the company. But they also are employees, right? Your employees have a vested interest in your success. Your customers have a vested interest in your quality and your success. Your community has a vested interest in the kind of company you are. So all of those are examples of stakeholders. We could think of some lesser stakeholders there. But these are the primary ones you want to keep front and center whenever you're thinking about who am I making my decisions for. So you want to outline those aspirations to them, what it is I want to become, so that there's some buy-in there. It provides direction. Where are we going? This may not be what our business is achieving and looks like right now, but this is what we're striving for. This is what we're trying to attain in the future. And then we also want it to have the characteristic of being inspiring. We don't want it to be bland, blasé, not something that people can really easily get on board with, but something that maybe captures the imagination a little bit or appeals to people's emotions a little bit, or both. So we want to be careful when we craft our vision that it's something that can be a little bit of a rallying slogan of sorts. This slide contains a list of vision statements. So pause the video, pause the slideshow, read these vision statements. Think about our criteria for vision statements. The idea that we want a big picture, future-oriented representation of what we want the company to be, and we want it to be presented in a way that is inspiring or captures the imagination. All right. So what I want you to do is two things as you read this slide. The first thing is try to guess which of these companies, these are all publicly traded companies, try to guess which of these vision statements belongs to a certain company. You might jot down your guesses. Don't look ahead to the next slide where the answers are. But the other thing is decide as you read them to what extent that these statements do the things or don't do the things that a good vision statement should. All of these are not necessarily good vision statements. So take a moment to check these out. Okay, so here are the answers to the last slide. At the bottom are the characteristics of what a good vision statement should look like. So think again, now that you see the companies, which ones are doing the best job of capturing what it is that is unique about them, that is aspirational about them for the future, that might capture the imagination of stakeholders, that is really aspirational. Who has the best vision statement? I will say that the three that I like best on this slide are Google, Nike, and Tesla. I think that they do the best in answering those three criteria. But you may have a different answer, and this is a subjective thing. I tend to think Amazon might have a little bit too much information to be too specific and not aspirational enough. And maybe some of the others I might think are a little bit too vague. Although, if you're Disney, you might be able to, really pull off because you're Disney to make people happy. That may be, you may think, hey, I can fill those shoes. But these are some examples of vision statements, and you're going to have an opportunity to write a vision statement here this week. So I want you to kind of digest what this is all about. A good mission statement needs to do the following things, and you don't necessarily have to cover every single base. Some of the things are like painfully obvious, and so a mission statement should be pretty obvious, but it may be so obvious you feel like you don't even have to list it. But for the most part, a mission statement needs this information. So I'm going to ask you to write a mission statement in a future assignment, and I'm going to expect at least 4 of these 6 elements to be in any good mission statement. And you can kind of choose which 2 that you want to leave off. Although it's perfectly good, in fact, it's better to cover all 6 if you can do it in a well-written statement. All right, so what are they? You want to identify what it is you sell, your product or your service. That needs to be in the statement. You want to specify the buyer's need that you seek to satisfy. All right, so why is this a product or service worth selling? All right, you want to identify the customer groups or markets that you're endeavoring to serve. Now, this may be covered by that second one. The buyer need may really tell me who that customer group is. So you might kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Fourth, specify your approach to pleasing customers. what is the unique spin that you're putting on things that makes people want to, that's going to make customers happy, all right, compared to maybe other options. And in a similar vein, so just like 2 and 3 were related, 4 and 5 are related, you want to set the company apart from your rivals. All right, so what's unique? What's special about you? What do you do well that enables you to stand out? And we're going to talk more about things like core competencies and what we can do to stand out in the next presentation. But for now, I just want you to have this this idea that you need to be unique, you need to be different. I know you've heard that in other entrepreneurship classes, but it's so true. All right, and the sixth one is kind of a catch-all and kind of an overview of all of them. And really, if your mission statement doesn't do this, then it's not a mission statement at all. You want to clarify your firm's business to anybody that's interested, and people that are interested are your stakeholders. All right, so anybody that has stake in your business, you want it to be clear what it is you do. If they walked in your doors, if they visited your website, what they could expect to see there. All right, so these are the 6 things that a mission statement should do. All right, so here are 4 mission statements. And again, this is kind of a subjective process, but think about those 6 criteria on the last slide. If you need to go back and look at those, great. You might snap a picture and then look at those criteria while you're looking at each of these. And think about, perhaps even write down what you think is the which of these mission statements are better and which maybe aren't so good. We want to really have a mission statement that captures the distinctive feel and products and services, and really helps you understand what it is about your company that is unique or different. Again, you're going to have an opportunity to craft your own mission statement, and we want to have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. So with that being said, I'll give you a little bit of guidance here. I actually don't really care for Disney's mission statement. Try to think about why that is. I think that IKEA's is a little bit vague. Try to think about why that is. I think that Advanced Auto Parts and Target's are a little better. So read those and see if you agree with me. Maybe you don't. It's not like there's a clear cut, these are great and these are terrible. But I think that Advanced Auto Parts is pretty complete. I think Target does a good job because implicit in Target's is kind of we're not Walmart, and this is, without saying we're not Walmart, we're better than Walmart. These are the ways that we're better, that we're a little different, that we're kind of differentiate ourselves from Walmart, despite Walmart being our competitor. Even though Target will tell you we don't see Walmart as a competitor, you can rest assured that in board meetings when top managers are talking, Walmart comes up often in Target strategy discussions. So think about how Target is trying to subtly differentiate themselves from Walmart there, and in doing so does a good job of answering those 6 questions on the last slide. If you recall, on the first slide of this presentation, I introduced you to a 3-stage process for strategy making. So we just covered the first stage, creating a vision statement and a mission statement. So who are we as the mission statement? Where do we want to go as the vision statement? Now we need to achieve our vision with our company. And one really tried and true way to do that is by developing objectives. In other words, developing milestones that we're going to strive for as we ultimately try to make our company as it is into the company that we want it to become. All right, so stage 2, setting objectives. Objectives are an organization's performance targets. They are the specific results. Specific's a key word here with objectives. We don't want to be vague and general now. Like we were a little vague and general with vision and mission, even though I kind of warned you against being too vague and general. With objectives, we want the specific results that management wants to achieve. Okay, so the purpose of setting objectives are kind of fourfold. We want to convert the vision and mission into these specific, measurable challenging, and timely performance targets. More on that later. Second, we want to focus efforts and align actions throughout the organization. We don't want people pulling in different directions. We don't want people kind of deciding what they think that the mission of the company should be. We don't want there to be strategic ideas that are at loggerheads. It may be that there's a faction of your organization that you develop, or a faction of yourself that wants to, okay, I want to offer things as efficiently and as low price as I can. But then you're always trying to tinker and innovate and make the customer experience better and differentiate your product or service. And if you think about it, those two goals are kind of at odds with each other. But if you have good objectives that are streamlined with your vision and mission, you're not going to be pulling in different directions, right? You're not going to be trying to do two things at the same time. You're going to be trying to have all your actions, streamlined and organized in the same way. All right. Number 3, they serve as yardsticks for tracking your firm's performance. You should be able to look back and see whether you are doing a good job or not, right? So you set your objectives at some point in right now, and in the future you can look back and say, okay, how well did we do at setting these objectives? All right. And then we want to inspire employees to greater levels of effort. Anytime you're trying to build a culture, there needs to be a purpose driving that culture. And objectives serve as kind of touchstones, things that people can look at and really better understand. They've got the vision and mission, but now specifically, what can I do to help achieve that? And so by having more and more tangible, concrete goals and objectives, we can let employees know what we want, and there's going to be buy-in. Whenever people have a goal in front of them, there's always more effort involved, or usually. That's kind of a principle in HR. There are 2 basic types of objectives, and really both are needed. We've got financial objectives and strategic objectives. Financial objectives usually have a hard dollar and cents target, right? So we're trying to achieve a certain level of sales, or a certain level of profitability, or a certain growth percentage. So they relate to financial performance targets that management has established for the organization to achieve. Generally, they're more short-term, right? It's hard to have some specific financial goals for 3.5 years from now. It's good to have those goals there, but as kind of more overarching. But really, when it comes to financial objectives, it usually makes more sense to do short-term, because they're based more on reality of what's going on right now, and projections are more difficult. Strategic objectives, on the other hand, tend to be more long-term. They are target outcomes to indicate whether your company is strengthening or not its market standing, its competitive position, and its future prospects. And in general, these are not measured in hard dollars and cents. They're measured in other things that we kind of have to look a little more closely within the organization to see if we're achieving these things. Here are some examples of some pretty good financial objectives. So notice that they always have something to do with dollars and cents, and that they are pretty short term. And here are some examples of some strategic objectives. And at times they can be dollars and cents. We're talking about things like market share and being the biggest. But in general, they're not. They're more internal to the organization. They're more about the overall strength and health of the organization long term, doing things that ensure that the company is going to be strategically competitive for years down the road. Good strategic objectives have the following qualities. They are specific, meaning that there is a significant level of detail there, right? They're not something vague. They're not just, we're going to be the best at customer service. That would not be very specific, but they're more, and I realized that one of the examples that I just showed you was kind of similar to that, but they are specific enough to where we can do the second thing, and that is measure it, right? Things that aren't specific tend to be difficult to measure with any precision. And so we want it to also be quantifiable, something that we can survey or look at an accounting statement and determine whether we actually achieved it. Third, there's a deadline for achievement. If you look at all of the strategic objectives I gave you, they all had an end date on them or some kind of time period. You need to be able to look back at some point and determine whether you actually achieved your objective. All right. The last thing is we need it to be challenging. It shouldn't be something that we can just kind of show up and breathe and do. That's not really what we're after with objectives. We want to push the organization to make people work, to strive for something. And if they're not challenging, then they're not really that helpful. On the other hand, you don't want to make it unobtainable at all. You want it to be something that the company has to stretch for. They have to really put their nose to the grindstone, strive, and but if they do that, then it is achievable. It's not automatic, but it's something that can happen. Strategy should be coherent. Your objectives, everything you do, starting with your vision and mission, going to your objectives, and then we're going to go to step 3 next, should be very coherent. Everything should be kind of tailor-made with each other. And so what I'm going to show you now is an example of that. All right, so let's view this report, a strategic analysis for a dog biscuit company. All right, so we've got two choices. We can either go with bargain-oriented dog owners who want a large variety of dog treats without breaking their budget. That's one market segment. Or health-conscious dog owners who will pay a premium for specialty dog treats. All right, and with our bargain segment, there's a 10% profitability per unit. With the gourmet segment, there's a 50% profit margin per unit. For either segment, you're not going to be able to expect significant profits during the first year of business. All right, the market size. The bargain segment, we think we can sell 10,000 pounds of this stuff every year. The gourmet segment, 1,000 pounds each year. All right, and for manufacturing, we can either set up a commercial kitchen at home or outsource production to a family friend in a country with low production costs. So we need to make a decision. And I am, since the class is not present, I'm going to make the executive decision that we are going to go with the organic gourmet biscuits for the canine connoisseur because, you know, we really love dogs and we're going to treat them to these high quality products. All right. And just as an aside, and I'll get back to this, for a small business owner, it usually makes sense to differentiate and focus on quality rather than to try to mass produce and focus on cost. All right, now we want our strategy to be cohesive. We want it to all line up. So we need some strategic thrusts for our company. Do we want to achieve profitability via high sales and low cost, or achieve profitability through low sales and high margins? Well, because we're going high end, we know that that demographic is smaller. We know that the profit margin is potentially greater. So we're going to try to create a very high quality product and sell it at a premium price. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. All right. Do we want to focus on quality and distinctive branding, or do we want to focus our marketing on thrifty dog owners? Well, we want to focus our marketing on accentuating the fact that we're high quality and that we're distinct and unique, because that is in line with our strategic objective of going after this market of the canine connoisseurs that really care about quality. All right. And then for the last choice, are we trying to expand slowly and maintain a boutique homemade image, or are we trying to reach large markets quickly? Well, if you think about what we're trying to do with our smaller production and our high quality image, really it makes more sense. You know, maybe we might try to get ambitious and reach large markets quickly, but things might get away from us if we do that. We want to really have tight control over our image. We want to make sure that we kind of hone in and make sure that that our quality is there. And so we don't want to amp up and try to mass produce this stuff, which may result in harm to the quality, but we want to expand slowly and maintain our homemade high quality image. All right, let's look at our next level, strategic thrusts on a functional level. All right, so for marketing, with our marketing campaigns, do we want to target a smaller, high margin segment of affluent, health conscious customers? Yeah, that makes sense given our overall objective. Do we want to target a larger, price conscious customer segment? No, we're not trying to go for those customers because our dog biscuits are expensive, and so they're not going to appeal to them. Do we want to imitate successful brands and beat them on price? Well, the fact that we're going for quality and trying to make something kind of better than what's out there really discourages us from doing that. Or do we want to offer health-focused organic products at a premium price? We want to do that. All right, looking at sales channel. Are we going to mass distribute large discount pet food retail chains? Are we going to try to go to the big box stores? Or are we going to use selective distribution through local organic pet and grocery stores? Obviously, the second channel makes a lot more sense for our brand. The shelf space at these places is going to be super expensive. It's going to be in front of a lot of eyes. And for our scale, we probably can't afford that. All right, for manufacturing and supply chain, do we want to contract production capacity from a family friend in a low-cost country with the option to expand the capacity as needed? Well, that's an interesting option, but we would lose control of our production process if we did that and lose control of quality. And so we want to be really careful about that. Plus, we don't want a lot of production capacity because the target market has a cap on how big it is, and it's not that big. It's like 1,000 pounds a year. It makes a lot more sense for us to do this second option, set up a very small production facility at home to retain homemade quality standards. All right, going on down here, do we want to use only locally organic and natural ingredients? Yeah, that sounds good given what we're trying to do. Or do we want to use food industry leftovers and cost-efficient ingredients? Well, if you look, these two are kind of very opposites. For our high-end dog biscuit, health-conscious consumers that we're after, this is the route we're going to want to go. This is what is cohesive with our strategy. All right. Finally, finance. This is a good one to think about. Do we want to minimize financial leverage? Do we want to use our own resources and grow profit as allows it? Or do we want to use aggressive financial leverage to support fast growth and aggressive pricing? This one's not quite as in-your-face obvious as the others, but think about the other things we want to do. We chose selective distribution rather than mass distribution. Selective distribution through smaller places is going to be cheaper. We chose setting up a small facility at home rather than a large production facility. We chose expensive ingredients, which that would drive costs, but not as much as the other two things. All right. And so because the choices we're making in the other areas aren't as expensive, our finance should be consistent with that. And so we're going to minimize financial leverage. Financial leverage is fine at some point, right? If we really need to be aggressive and go for it risk-wise. But for right now, we want to be very careful with our quality, with our brand image. We're going to grow slowly. So with that in mind, we want to minimize financial leverage. All right. I'm not going to go through the individual tactics up here at the top. It's kind of more of the same. The idea here is that one thing flows from the next, right? We made our strategic objective of providing organic gourmet biscuits for the canine connoisseur. Then we had strategic thrusts that went along with that, achieving profitability through low sales volumes and high margins, focusing on quality and distinctive branding, and expanding slowly to maintain that boutique homemade image. And then at the functional level, we looked at marketing, sales channel, manufacturing, and financing. we see that our decisions are in support of the rest of our strategy. So after we come up with our mission and vision, our objectives need to support that. And then after we come up with our objectives, our strategy needs to support that. Okay, so that's what I mean by building a cohesive or coherent, kind of synonyms there. Cohesive means it all binds together. Coherent means that it completely makes sense as we read through it, that everything lines up. There aren't things that are at odds with each other.